Welcome everybody to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Vicious Mama, and joining me is my wonderful co-host Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone. And we are coming to you tonight with a topic that I feel like a lot of people ask us about, and that is Disney with motion sensitivity or having motion sickness, and what does that look like, and how do I do that, and all those types of things. So that's the goal tonight, is for us to give you all of this really good information. So Kate, how's it going today?
It's going. We've had quite an interesting week with a lot of winter storms and things, so I'm recovering from that. But I feel like this topic is a really great one to dig into. I'm someone who does suffer from motion sickness, and so do two of my children. So I'm very well versed in this topic. Although I will say there's different levels of motion sickness and sensitivity depending on who you are, and something that bothers somebody, it might not bother somebody else. So I
true.
think as you start to think about this topic in general, we give you tips. Just know that just like if you have maybe shoes that you recommend for Disney, some shoes might work better for some people but not for others, and so it's the same kind of thing with this topic. I think you have to think about it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And I am at this point, knock on wood, lucky enough to not have to worry too much about motion sickness. Although my oldest has been prone to motion sickness in the car when we're driving, like to and from Disney, like in the mountains. We have a little bag of stuff for him to be ready. So I'm waiting for the day that it creeps into his riding when we go. So I'm kind of just prepared, and on this last trip, we did grab his little bag of stuff that we had, like prep for him, and throw it in our park bag just in case. So we had it. But as of right now, knock on wood, we're doing okay.
Well, my oldest is the same. He doesn't do like trips over the mountains and windy, twisty. Mm-hmm. He gets sick every single time. He just hates those drives. Yeah. And then my middle child, she gets sick every time we fly. So she's air sick, but never car sick. Like, she can read in the car. She's like good, but something about the like turbulence and dropping in the aircraft makes her sick. So she has a different kind of sickness than he does. And then I have one where I like can't go backwards on anything, and I can't do like extreme spinning. So we have a variety of sickness.
A little bit of everything for you, just to keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, shall we talk? I think the first thing we're going to tackle is just some methods that we have come up with or researched, or people that have given us information and their insight on just ways to combat motion sickness when you're at the parks. So I think we're going to start there tonight.
So let's talk about some methods to help combat sickness. And I do see over here on my side, Hope is saying, someone said smelling an alcohol wipe makes nausea go away, but it makes me feel so sick smelling it. So I've heard that too, that smelling an alcohol wipe or a little bit of rubbing alcohol will help sometimes with sickness, but it does depend on the person, obviously. Jackie, what do you want to dive into our first topic here?
Yeah. So one of the ones that I think I will always suggest to people, and I suggest this to literally everyone that's going to Disney, is just if there are rides that you're concerned about, whether it be if it's appropriate for your kid, whether it be if it's appropriate for you, whether it be motion sickness, whatever your reasoning, if it's something you're concerned about, just pull up a point of view video on YouTube, watch it, get an idea for what it's like, and kind of go from there. Now, some of the rides are easier to do that than others. Some of them are dark. If you're looking at something like Tron or Cosmic Rewind, it's hard on some of those point of view videos. You've really got to find one that's got good like night vision with that. But some of the other ones you'll be able to tell fairly easily if you think that will bother you for your particular motion sickness symptoms and triggers.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Also, being really aware of what you eat and when you eat before going on a ride that can make you feel nauseous. Avoiding, this is kind of hard to do at Disney, honestly. I saw this advice, I was like, I don't think we could do this. Avoiding greasy and acidic foods. Maybe you don't eat like the whole corn dog, you opt for half of it or something, like maybe just like moderate your, also avoiding carbonated drinks, which I know is not always fun to do on vacation. Sometimes you really like drinking that, but sometimes that can upset your stomach a little bit more when you go on these rides. Also, eating smaller meals more often, smaller meals and snacks more often than rather than like large meals. So instead of like 3 meals a day, you eat like 6 snacks or smaller portions per day. I find especially when it's hot outside, this is really critical for me.
Yeah.
In the Florida heat, it will get me. If I try to eat big meals, I almost always get really sick. So having small meals makes a difference.
And I think paying attention to what you're eating right before you know you're going to be going on one of those rides. So maybe not completely avoiding it all day long, but just being really smart about, okay, we have a lightning lane for, or a virtual queue return time for Cosmic Rewind. We're going to be going on that, relatively early in the morning. So I'm going to be careful about what I eat for breakfast because I know that that one's going to be a trigger for me. So just thinking about what you're eating and when you're eating it.
Yeah. Also, drinking lots of water. Always. But it really does make a huge difference. If you keep yourself really well hydrated, you can definitely combat a lot of that sickness because it like your whole body starts to just feel awful when you haven't drank enough water. And it's really easy to get dehydrated at Disney.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Blair makes a really good point over here on my side of the chat. She said sipping water regularly, not chugging it all at once. That could also have the opposite effect. So that is a very good point, Blair. Thank you for adding that when it comes to drinking your water. Yeah, don't chug a whole water bottle worth of water before you get on Tron.
Yeah, I have a hard time doing that anyway. Like I've tried to do that to stay hydrated. Like I like the idea of like, oh, like drink the rest of your water before you refill your water bottle, but I can't always drink that much water. It will make me sick. Yeah. So yes, sipping throughout the day is a very smart choice.
Yes. And planning your outfits around it, which sounds a little like what? But just making sure that you're comfortable and your outfits aren't too tight. They don't make you feel claustrophobic, especially around like your stomach area. Making sure that you're comfortable in what you're wearing. So that way, if you are in a situation where you start to get a little bit nauseous, that doesn't make it worse.
Yeah, you think of I know for me, if I start to feel really sick, say if I'm on an airplane, I start to feel airsick, I immediately get like super, super hot and I want to be able to take off layers. But if I don't have any layers I can take off in public, like that becomes like a huge problem, right? So think through knowing from your past experience how you experience your sickness, and to kind of dress accordingly. Sometimes people, something compressing their stomach will trigger something if they're feeling off, or maybe it's the layers and it's the heat. Just give yourself a fighting chance of not getting sick by what you're wearing. I think is wise to do.
And I think the other thing you can think about, we talked about what you're wearing, but also where you are in the car. You are less likely to get sick if you're in the middle of a coaster versus the front or the back. So you can always just kindly request it from the cast member when you get like to the last cast member that assigns you your row that you're going in. If it's a coaster, you can just ask them for a middle row or see what they can do. Sometimes you might have to wait one more round. Oftentimes they're just like, yeah, go ahead. It's not a big deal at all when you're requesting something like that.
Yeah, they're used to it, but always be kind anyway, because it does inconvenience them a little bit, so just be kind about it. Don't be rude, as always, to cast members. And I would also say this is especially true on like Cosmic Rewind is a big one that you definitely want to try to sit in the middle-ish, like row 5, 6 if you can. Those are a little bit easier on your body in terms of the G-forces and things like that. So I recommend that.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is to focus your eyes on a fixed spot. This is like you would anybody with motion sickness is like, okay, when you sit in the car, you watch the road or you drive. It's like ideally you're driving because that will keep you from getting sick, right? But the same kind of goes for if you're on a ride. As much as you possibly can, keep your head and neck as still as possible, and don't, like on Cosmic Rewind, don't look at the moon. Like, don't look at anything that's going to cause the G-forces to be right. So don't look at the goat on Big Thunder Mountain in Disneyland. You don't have to worry about the ramps in Disney World because they're not a thing. Don't look at the moon on Cosmic Rewind. That will definitely make you feel way more sick. Things you can also do is like plant your feet firmly and kind of hold on so you don't get jostled as much. Also good if you have like back injuries and things like that. Although you should talk to your doctor if you have back injuries about whether or not you should go on these rides.
Very
we
true.
are not doctors, so. Also, watch the track if you can, just like you would the road on coasters to see what's coming. If you're able to, some of these you can't, like Cosmic, you'll be turning, and Space Mountain, it's dark, you know. So as much as humanly possible, watch and see what's coming, because your eyes are taking input to communicate to your brain about what you should be doing, what your body's doing, and when you can make that connection visually with what's going on in your brain, that will make it so that you'll get less sick.
Exactly. Scientist Kate over there telling us.
Brain connection. That's important.
Love it. Now, if you are in the parks and you do start to feel sick and you don't have anything with you, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, some different things you can use and bring with you, go to first aid. They have things that will help, and that's what they're there for. They're there to help you and to give you advice. And so go to first aid, let them know what's going on, and they will help you out. So if you are stuck in the parks with nothing to help, first aid is your place to go.
Yeah, and they'll also, especially if you have been sick, they'll take your blood pressure and they'll take your vitals and things, make sure that you're doing okay, which I think is good for just reassurance that they'll take care of you. They'll give you things if you need them. They'll offer you some medicine if they think it might help, if they've diagnosed you with whatever and they think it would be good. So definitely a great place to go, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free. So go and get the help you need.
And especially if it's hot outside, it's air conditioned in there.
Yes.
So, and oftentimes if it gets to the point where you like need a space to lay down, they've got areas that they can help you find to go and take a break for a minute if you need to. You know, they're definitely there to help. So utilize that.
Yeah, Disney is all about your health and safety. They care about you in the parks. They want to make sure that you are being safe and that you're getting what you need, so that you are not going to get injured or injure anybody else. So, so yes, go there if you can.
Let's talk about some different things that you can try to help if you're someone who is new to motion sickness or you haven't quite figured out what works best for you. Now, disclaimer, this is not medical advice. This is just things that we have found that have worked for others or have worked for Kate and her family. Definitely talk to your doctor if you're someone who knows that you experience motion sickness but have not found that, combination of what works for you. Please talk to your doctor. Do not take our advice solely and use it in the parks. This is just information that we'd like to present to you so that you can take it to your doctor to figure out what's best.
Yes, we are definitely not medical professionals, and we don't want to come off as such. So, but and you also know your body. There might also be things we suggest here that might have adverse. What is it? Adverse, like they
Side
would
effects?
not side effects when you take them with another medication that you might be on, and those kinds of things. So if anything is like a medication, definitely make sure you check with your doctor to make sure it's something you can take. That being said, the first thing we have is motion sickness bands, which a lot of people will recommend. That you can get the ones that are just the ones that use a pressure point right here between your two little tendons. You wear them on both your wrists, and that's supposed to kind of like help alleviate motion sickness. And for some people, these work really, really well. Very effective. My son, who's a little bit more sensory of a person, really hated them because he didn't like something pushing on his wrist. So
yeah, that's exactly what happened with mine. He will still reluctantly wear them, because he prefers that over the medication that we have for him. He would prefer to not have to take the medication if he doesn't have to, which I don't blame him at all. But he doesn't like how tight it feels and constricting that it feels on him. So he very reluctantly will wear them, but he doesn't love them.
Yeah, but there are some people that swear by them. Like that's the only thing that works for them, and that's great. They've never worked for me, so I've tried them several times and it never worked. So I'm just like I've kind of given up on them for me personally. But there's a lot of people they do work for, and if you want to go to like the next level, if you're like you're a chronic motion sickness person, and you were like, I'm ready to just like invest in something that will stop this. They have something called a relief band, which is a about 200 to 220 depending on the model that you get. But it's more effective for a lot of people. So it's an anti-nausea band that releases a specific pattern of pulses that stimulate the median nerve under the skin. The pulses normalize the nerve messaging from the brain to the stomach and rapidly relieve nausea and vomiting symptoms without any side effects. So I don't know if that is safe. Some people have said they've used it during pregnancy. I don't know if it's safe for pregnant people. So also, talk to your doctor. But it does sound like it's been a game changer for a lot of people. And some other people were just like, this didn't work for me at all, like we said.
Yeah.
But that might be something if you suffer from motion sickness long term, but you're just like, and you're sad that you can't go on things, maybe it's something you want to give a try and invest in.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading that when you put that on our notes, I was like, that is fascinating. Again, I'm not, I am just barely dipping my toes into this world right now. So like, I don't know a lot of the different things other than just the few things that we've tried for my son. But like, I was like, that's really interesting. I have a couple people over here that are saying that, yeah, they know. Blair says her husband used one and it worked well. Stephanie said that they have them for her husband and her daughter, and they both work really well for both of them. So
yeah, like I was reading through some of the reviews of it because I don't have one personally, and it seemed to be the thing that didn't work on it was the charger. Like it wouldn't charge properly.
That would be a problem.
So I mean that seems like a downside, but the rest of it seems like it actually did work for a lot of people. So kind of an interesting option there. Do we want to talk a little bit about something that is more of a medication that you can take? Because there's a couple options here.
We have several different options as far as like a medication version. The first being Dramamine, and they do have an adult version and a kids version of this. So if you've got a kiddo that I think it's under 12, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's under 12.
I think so.
They have a kids version. This is what we've tried with my son. He hates the way it tastes, but it works really well for him.
Same.
So,
Kids hate it.
So you would take it about 30 minutes before going on whatever ride it is that you anticipate giving you problems. So it is a preventative. It's not something that's going to necessarily help, although it could in a pinch. It has with my son before when we were in the car, but it's mostly more effective as a preventative. So if you're already feeling sick, it may be too late for it to help. It just really depends on.
I mean, you might as well try, but
Right.
it'll probably prevent any future sickness from that point.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, and I will say this, we have a note here about opting for a less drowsy formula, possibly, because like this knocks my son out whenever he takes it.
Yeah,
So
it makes them very sleepy.
yeah,
But the less drowsy formula, I'm not sure there is a kid version of the less drowsy formula.
I haven't seen one if there is.
Because it's the same formula as Bonine. So if you're familiar with that, that's meclizine hydrochloride. That's pretty much the same active ingredient as less drowsy Dramamine. So if you're looking trying to debate between the two, pretty much the same thing between Bonine and less drowsy Dramamine. Those are usually the ones that I lean towards taking. I swear by Bonine for when I fly especially, and I'll take Bonine before a day when I know I'm going to do a lot of thrill rides, and it usually doesn't make me too drowsy. I don't notice being that much more tired, but it does keep me from getting sick on a lot of things. So
Yeah, and do keep in mind that both of those options do have like a time frame. So like they're not going to last you 24 hours. They're, so definitely look into that, because you may need to end up taking a second dose during the middle of the day. So that may help you determine what kind of option you want to look at for that.
yeah, and they say with Bonine you should take it the night before you go to the parks, and then take it as directed throughout the day the next day, and that kind of like gets it into your system to start preventing things, I guess is what I heard. I've actually never tried that, but that's what people have been recommending. And I was like, well, as long as you're taking it as directed,
Yes.
like time frame, it seems like that wouldn't be a bad option to do, especially if you know that you get sick on rides.
Yeah.
I didn't mention it, but I think we should. Something that I do with my kids, because the flavor's not the best with Dramamine. My kids usually, I'm not like world's best mom for this, but they usually take it with something that they do like the taste of. So for me, it's usually like M&Ms or some sort of candy they like.
Yeah.
Not a ton, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever it is that they do like to eat that can kind of mask the flavor. Like, they always have a follow-up. They always ask for a bottle of water and, like, a little bit of candy. And so they eat it, and they eat it really quickly. And then they, like, shove the candy in their mouth and then drink a whole bunch of water. And that's how they eat. They take them because they hate the flavor of it. All three of my kids hate it. So, yeah, good times with that.
Hey, you know, it could be worse.
And I'm so make me a bad mom. Thank you, Christina, for that. I appreciate that. I mean, I'm just like, hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, especially if you're flying with your children and you know they're going to get airsick and they don't like the flavor of something. We're like, what's worse, them having a small handful of M&Ms or the air sickness? Right.
Like, nope.
Just saying.
M&Ms it is. A whole bag if they need it.
I also say that something we have discovered, because everybody in my family pretty much gets motion sick, is that Benadryl can also work in a pinch if you don't have anything else on hand, but you do have Benadryl. Again, it's going to make you drowsy. Like, I wouldn't recommend driving, taking that. And I wouldn't, you know, I would just know that you're going to get pretty sleepy. And I wouldn't take it unless you absolutely had to. But if you had nothing else to take, but you had some Benadryl, you could take that, and it has similar effects to Bonine and Dramamine.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that before. So I was like, that's interesting, because I do usually keep Benadryl on me. So I was like, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I've gotten desperate a couple of times. So
hey, you know,
it's
that's
mostly on flights,
happens.
so I could just sleep, and then it was not a big deal.
Yeah. So another option, if you're not a fan of medication, oral medication, they do make different types of patches that you can wear. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that word.
Okay. I'll do it. I've used
you
this
got
one.
it.
So, scopolamine transdermal patch. It's a prescription only patch that you put behind your ear, and it lasts, or I think you can also put it on your stomach, but I know for sure behind your ear, and it lasts for 3 days. So you don't take it off for 3 days. And that is what I used on my first cruise when I was like super nauseous, and you have to go to your doctor to get a prescription for it. And it really doesn't have a ton of side effects. I think it was mostly like dry mouth, which I didn't really experience. And then when you come off of it, you can feel like slightly dizzy when you're like coming back, like once you remove it. But I found that was one of the best things. If you're a severe motion sickness sufferer, that is tremendously helpful. And it's just it's a patch you put on your skin. So
yeah, that's good to know. And then I did reach out to some friends on Discord and just asked about, if you guys have suggestions. So our friend Kristen had a link to these ones on Amazon that are like natural herb, like an herbal relief patch for motion sickness.
Yeah.
And she said that especially for my husband and kids wear those on Flight of Passage, Cosmic, etc., and for car sickness too, they put them behind each ear and on their belly button.
Yeah. Yeah, I have used those. They didn't work for me, but again, different people works for different things. So I have heard it working for other people really well. The one that I got had a very strange smell. So I was like, I think that was part of it, was like the smell was very off-putting and probably made me a little bit more nauseous. So I think you would there's a couple different versions out there though. So maybe I just got a weird one.
Yeah. So if you're looking for the one that our friend Kristen suggested, it is in our Mom Street channel on the Discord, which you can find that in Mr. Lincoln bio. So if you're looking for that one, that's where it is. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah. I think that does work for a lot of people. It's gotten really high reviews on Amazon and things like that. So it's an option. It just didn't work for me. Next up we have mints, which we talked a little bit about. Like, you can smell little alcohol wipes, but instead of smelling something, you can have something. Sometimes just especially peppermint and spearmint. Those tend to help a lot. And you could also do them in like not eating them, but you can use them in essential oil form as well, as long as you know how to use those safely, because there's ways to use essential oils that otherwise they can irritate your skin or your kid's skin or things like that. So make sure you're using them safely.
Yeah, and then another one that you can use is different forms of ginger. So whether that be ginger chews, ginger candy, ginger ale, there are ginger pills that you can take. So there's lots of different forms of that. So if you find that you know that when your stomach is upset or you're feeling nauseous, that ginger helps you with that, that is definitely an option. And just throw some in your bag in a little Ziploc or whatever you need. And then just have it on hand. If you're those types of ones that we just recommended, I would say are more for like maybe a little lesser versions of motion sickness, because those are truly not going to probably help if you're like full out nauseous after getting off of a ride. It may tide you over for a few seconds until you use maybe one of the other options that we suggested. But those are definitely good in a pinch to have on hand.
Definitely. And Christina and Brittany over here both saying mint chewing gum is like is what they use, and I agree. That's definitely something. I feel like with the mint and the ginger, just as somebody, for me personally, who has a lot of motion sickness, I feel like those are kind of good at kind of like staving off like light motion sickness, like just kind of like the general unease. If like on a boat that's like barely rocking, I'm good. Like maybe that would help. For me personally, like if it's going to be like more extreme, I'm going to have to go to like one of the other methods. And everybody's different, so it depends on who you are and how your motion sickness affects you. So
yeah, and I think just some general advice from the Mom Street Moms here. Pace yourself. If you know that certain rides are going to upset your stomach, make you feel nauseous, give yourself time in between to recover before going on another ride. Go sit down, go find some air conditioning to relax, and maybe close your eyes for a few seconds and just let your body calm before you try to go on another thrill ride.
yeah, for sure. Like really give yourself the time, and it's very tempting at Disney to run thing to thing to thing to thing, and you don't want to like slow down your party, but you also have to really pay attention, and your kids too. If they're like struggling, like sit down and give them that time to just rest and like let their body kind of reorient before you push them to something else or you push yourself to something else. It can make all the difference. I do have a note here from Gisela, says pretzels help when nauseous, that they learn them from their OBGYN. So that's pretty interesting. I had never heard pretzels, but we're all fans of pretzels over here.
Yeah.
Maybe keep a little bag of pretzels on you just in case. I think that would help for especially pregnancy, like morning sickness and stuff. It's, having some carbs definitely helps a lot when you're feeling nauseous. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Some more advice: knowing your limits and what you can and cannot handle. And sometimes it's maybe better to sit out a ride than to be sick the rest of the day.
Yeah. Which is hard. It's hard to sit out a ride, especially when you really want to go on it. You really want to experience it. But, there's some things that if you experience it and then you feel sick for like 2 hours afterwards, imagine all the stuff you're not going to be able to enjoy just because you chose to go on the thing that maybe made you sick. So know your limits. It's always good life advice.
Yes.
Know your limitations.
So true. Yeah, I had an experience with that. I don't have motion sickness, but I was early on in my pregnancy, and I went to Universal with some friends, and I had been cleared by my doctors to ride anything I wanted, but I knew that was not in my best interest. So the only time that I've been to Universal, I rode like 2 things because I was like, again, it wasn't worth ruining the experience for me.
Yeah.
So I walked through all the queues and I got to, be immersed in all of the different lands and see everything still. I just didn't do the rides. So, you got to make that decision for what's best for you and what's best for your group. And it was early on in our trip too. It was like the first day. So I was like, nope, not doing it.
Oh, yeah, but it is good though. I mean, to still be able to walk through the queues, that's a really good thing. You still can do that, and just walk through the queues with your party, and then just take the, they call it chicken exit, but like, take the exit before you go over, just to ask a cast member and say like, hey, I prefer not to ride, is there a way that I could exit? And they will show you a place to go, because that happens a lot, especially on those big thrill rides. So you don't have to feel weird about doing that. That's okay.
Yeah, it happens a lot more than people think, I feel like. But yeah, that's totally an option if you want to spend time with your family and want to be there with them and want to get to, don't want to have to sit back while everyone else waits for 30 minutes for a ride. Wait with them and then just dip out.
And a lot of Disney rides, like half of the experience is in the queue. They have those elaborate themed queues. Think of like Rise of Resistance and even Cosmic Rewind. Like a lot of these rides have these incredible queues. Tron has an incredible queue. Well, part of it. Half of Tron's queue. A quarter of Tron's queue is incredible. Maybe like a solid third. I don't know.
Depends on, well, because you get to see like the reveal at the beginning and then you get to go, it's
like the big loading room is cool,
Yeah,
and like the beginning is kind of cool, and the middle's kind of like, okay.
Okay.
So you get to see the lockers, it's just kind of fun. Like,
Right.
you get to see what's happening. Watching people load is pretty fun. Anyway.
Yeah.
I also have a note here from Brittany. It says, if I feel sick or nauseous on a ride, I just close my eyes, which honestly I've never tried, but my kids do that when they're scared. So I don't know, like that could definitely help. So something to try if you want to.
And then I do have, I honestly just copied and pasted this from our friend Christina, who I think is over on your side of the chat right now, but she had a really, really good insight on taking her kiddo. She had talked about maybe preloading all of the super easy rides and working their way up to the bigger rides. She said going on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, although it was my kiddo's choice entirely, was too much for him and he was scared of other rides after that. He didn't like how it made his stomach feel, so he thought every ride was going to be like that. So that's a really, really good point, is if it's your kiddo's first experience on these coasters and you're really not sure, maybe working them up to that is a really good point. And then she had some really good advice. She said doing things before the trip that would help them get used to that dropping sensation that a lot of the rides have. She said, for example, during the summer, go to a water park, go down slides or slides at your local park, go sledding down some hills if it's winter, just to try to get them used to what that might feel like. And I think that's a really, really good idea if you're someone who maybe you suffer motion sickness and you anticipate that your kiddo is going to, trying to test the waters a little bit before you just dive in feet first.
Yeah, I mean, you could even go to a more local amusement park if you have something that's smaller. A lot of states do have something that's a smaller amusement park that you could just try going on a couple of rides, maybe, or a state fair or something like that, where you can just kind of test out what kind of rides maybe they like or don't, or those kinds of things. I think that's really wise, especially if they've never been to Disney before. And because Disney is an investment of time and energy and money and all the things. So knowing in advance how they might handle things gives you a game plan for like, okay, here's how we should do this. So I love that advice, Christina. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, like I said, I literally was like, oh yeah, that's good. Copy paste.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Brittany says VR is kind of fun to try ahead of time, like virtual reality. My kids got so excited with virtual reality ride POVs for Disney, which we talked about POV watching them, but I never really thought like a virtual reality one would be really cool with like be fully immersed into it. That's a good idea.
And that may help you determine, like, if we're going to talk about here shortly rides to watch out for, but some of them screens can be an issue, so giving them something like that could definitely help, again, test the waters on that.
Yeah, because screens is almost a different thing than motion. So shall we transition to that that topic here? Because we have different rides to watch out for in all of the Disney parks, specifically which ones you might need to have a game plan for and what kind of motion it is. So Jackie, do you want to help us dive in?
Yes. So we were kind of debating about the best way to give you guys this information. So we kind of arranged it in the best way we thought that it would be helpful, because there are several different types of motion sickness. You may be someone that those drops where your stomach kind of bottoms out really gets you. It may be the spinning motion. It may be screens or 3D things. There's lots of different versions of motion sickness, so to speak. So we're going to kind of give you guys some different lists, and you may hear duplicate rides on some of them because some of them hit more than one category when it comes to motion sickness, unfortunately. But we are going to touch on all the U.S. parks and a little bit on Disneyland Paris just because we can, and we figure that'll be helpful information because
we can.
Because we can, and because it's helpful.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely.
Yes. So I think we're going to start with Disneyland. So we're going to start out in California. So in Disneyland, a couple just general motion rides to look out for when it comes to just overall motion sickness, and a lot of these also have that kind of dropping sensation. So Big Thunder Mountain, Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster, the Indiana Jones Adventure, the Matterhorn bobsleds, Space Mountain, Pirates out there because of the drops. Those can possibly bother some people. Yep. And Rise of the Resistance as well. For spinning rides in Disneyland, we've got Astro Orbiter, Mad Tea Party, Dumbo, the King Arthur Carousel, and I put in there Runaway Railway because there are a couple sections in Runaway Railway where there's some spinning motion there. So
yeah, for sure. It does kind of, yeah, just a little bit, not a lot,
right?
But it's there. Yeah.
And that may be one that you could get away with just kind of closing your eyes when it starts to spin, and then when it stops spinning, you can open them again because it's not the whole ride with that one.
And there is like a screen too where it feels like there's motion on the screen even though you're not being jostled at all. So that could also be a time for that.
Yeah, so let's talk about other screen rides at Disneyland. Smuggler's Run, Star Tours, and Rise of the Resistance. So unfortunately, if you are a screen person, Star Wars area is just not for you.
I know they have a lot of like motion simulators. Star Wars, like, how do we put you in space? Just put a motion simulator on it. We're good. That's pretty much how that happened.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I also want to say that when you were the one that originally compiled this list of rides. Thank you very much for that because you're such a sweetheart. But when I saw the carousel, my brain was like, that kind of just goes up and down. And then I was like, oh, it does go around.
The whole thing spins, Kate.
My brain was like, it's just up and down motion. I was like, oh no, it's around. Yep. They're all around. Yep. Every single carousel is always around.
Yep. I know. And honestly, it was hard for me to kind of compile the list because I'm not someone who deals with it directly. So I was just like, well, I literally went to the app and pulled up the entire list of attractions and went through each one and was like, using my best judgment. So if I forgot any, I'm really sorry. Or if I did, please let me know. Let us know in the comments if you're like, oh, this one too. Because again, everyone's different.
That's the other name, merry-go-round. It's true. Yes, I don't know where my brain was. I will say that you wouldn't think that Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster would be one that would be on this list because it's like a little kid's coaster. It's like, what, 23 seconds long? It's like one of the shortest rides in Disney history. But I was reading through just some, I was crawling Reddit because I was just like interested to see what other people thought about this topic.
Yeah.
And there was some dad that was just like, yeah, I got motion sick on Gadget's Go Coaster, and that's how I knew I was getting old. And I was like, oh no. Well, so yeah, it is what it is. You can get motion sick on that one.
Yeah. Connor's got a good question over here, Kate, for you. Does Nemo's Submarine Voyage ever count as a motion sickness prone ride?
No, I think it's more of a claustrophobic ride.
That's what I was thinking. And that's what I debated when I pulled up that list. I was like, I think that's just mostly claustrophobia when it comes to that.
It really just kind of stays at the same level and goes really slow. So there's no ups and downs. It kind of like, I think the hole might vibrate slightly at one point. It's very, very, very slow moving. And it's just, if you're claustrophobic at all, just don't go on it. It will make it, because they close the hatch and then you're stuck there for like 20 minutes and you can't get off. There's no way to get off of it. You're literally underwater going around in it. So there is an option for people who are nervous about it. There is an option that is like an accessible option that you can go and you can watch it from a room and you can kind of like see the ride through some portholes magically. Like you can see what the ride is. without going and sitting in the submarine. So you can always ask for that if you're just like, I just don't know and I'm too scared to try.
Yeah.
That way you can still experience the ride without actually having to get in the submarine. So
That's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's look at California Adventure. Again, we tried to kind of divide these out into different categories based on what may happen for them. So just kind of general motion can be, motion issues when it comes to California Adventure. Goofy Sky School, Guardian's Mission Breakout, which is that really, really big with drops, so that up and down,
Like Tower of
bottoming
Terror.
out. Yep, exactly.
System. Yeah.
Incredicoaster, Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters, Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, and the swinging version of the Pixar Pal Around can all definitely be just general motion sickness inducing.
Yeah, definitely the Pixar Pal Around. That's the big Ferris wheel, in case you don't know which one that is. And the swinging cars are the ones that will just all of a sudden kind of like drop all the way the other side and then swing back and forth. They do put bags for if people get sick, like look like air sickness bags. They do stock those on there for a reason. And they do have ones that are non-swinging. They do rock back and forth just a little bit, but they're usually not too bad unless it's super windy. So
yeah.
But usually I don't usually have a problem with that, but that doesn't mean that somebody else wouldn't. So just know that they rock a little bit.
And your non-swinging one is pretty much a standard Ferris wheel. It's just a very large Ferris wheel, so
yeah,
keep that in mind.
The
we're not talking.
The top is really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're not talking if you're scared of heights or anything like that, but just motion sickness wise, you should be okay.
Yeah.
And then spinning sensations at California Adventure, the Golden Zephyr, the Silly Symphony Swings, and the Critter Carousel. Again, it's just that round spinning motion. They're not super big thrill rides. They just have that spinning motion to them. So
yeah, I think Christina says so. In other words, the shorter list would be rides that are safe to ride for motion sickness. Yes.
Yeah, and it really just depends on what type of motion sickness you're prone to. If you're prone to all of these, I'm really sorry. Take our advice that we talked about earlier, and maybe you'll be able to go on a few.
Yeah, get that relief band. Maybe that will work.
Yes. And then screens. So if you're a screen person, that you have issues with screens when it comes to rides, Guardian's Mission Breakout has screens. Now with that one, you're looking at them pretty, like you're not moving as you're looking at the screens. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's not like a motion. I mean, what will happen is the whole thing will just be going like up and down, like this while they're there. So it's like you're kind of feels like being on a boat on the waves is what it feels like while there's stuff happening on the screens, and then you'll either go up or you'll go down, as the scene ends or whatever. And it's very hard to predict because it's not the same every single time. They do change it, so it's hard to kind of like brace yourself or know which section to do what. That it's kind of randomized, so tougher to anticipate.
Yeah. And then as far as other screen rides, Soarin', again, now I think people have said that the different versions of Soarin' have a different effect on them. So some have said that, there's two different versions of Soarin' that exist. There is Soarin' Around the World and Soarin' Over California. So I've heard different variations of that ride affect people differently. I don't know if you've experienced that.
I think the older version is less synced to the motions because it's just older in general and the footage is a little fuzzier.
Yeah.
And so anytime that the footage isn't like 100% synced with your motion, that was going to make you a little bit queasier. I feel like Soarin' Around the World, I haven't encountered a ton of people that have an issue with that version.
That's also what I found, and I asked our good friend Becca, who I know has motion sickness, and she said that the biggest issue she had is the one where they go over the freeway.
Yeah, that one's rough. Yeah.
So there we go. So if you're worried about Soarin', it seems like Over California has more issues than Around the World.
Yeah, probably just because it's older technology.
Yeah, and now I will say both of them are not always available at whichever coast you're going to, because we'll talk about Soarin' again when we get to Epcot. So like right now at Epcot, I'm going to hop coasts for a minute. At Epcot, we have Soarin' Over California currently, but that's not the permanent one that's there. It's usually Soarin' Around the World.
Yeah. They kind of switch them out with like whatever festival is happening. Yes. So Just check before you go.
And in California Adventure right now, you guys have Soarin' Around the World, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like it's late in the spring. I know they hand out oranges when they do it because of the orange scent in Soarin' over California. It's always like a promotion where they give you an orange, like a cutie. But
That's amazing.
I can't remember which festival it is, but one of the festivals, they bring it back for that one every year, it seems like, at least for the last couple of years.
Yeah. So again, when you're looking at Soarin', see which video you're going to see, and then maybe make your decision based on that.
Yeah.
Other screens at California Adventure, Web Slingers does have screens. I put PhilharMagic on there because it is a 3D experience, and if you have issues with 3D, that could bother you. I know people who 3D gives them like massive headaches, and so it could bother you with that. Same with Toy Story Midway Mania on that as well with the 3D screens.
Yeah, and I do know some people that just like choose to not put on their glasses for it. And it's a little bit tougher with Midway Mania for that one because it makes it harder to shoot the things. But with PhilharMagic, you easily could not wear glasses and be just fine. It would just be, blurry like it does without the 3D glasses. So.
Yes, absolutely.
And also, Connor says, addition to the spinning rides in Disneyland, we forgot Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin, which does spin. And you kind of control it a little bit. So you can kind of stop it from spinning a whole lot. But it does have a spinning motion. So yes, thank you, Connor, for that.
Oh, Amber is saying also the Inside Out ride at DCA.
Oh, yeah. I haven't been on that in eons. The last time I was on that was when it was Flix Flyers. They rebranded it and stuck it in another part of the park. It used to be over in Bugs Land. Yeah, it goes in a circle and then it goes up and down. So they kind of like go like this. So yeah, that one could be if you don't do spinning and a little bit of the drops, but it's very gentle because it's a kid's ride. So again, you can see that one before you get on it, kind of make a judgment call.
Yeah, that's always helpful when you can see what's going on and you can watch it maybe before you get on. That's always helpful.
Yeah, honestly, I forget about that ride because they tuck it in. It's like in the middle of the coaster for Incredicoaster. It's like tucked in the center of it. And it's like, I forget it's there half the time. I'm glad.
Well, especially when it used to be in a different part of the park, that makes it even easier to be like, it's not there.
It's like it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, because it used to be Flix Flyers. So, gosh, that ride. Yep, it's there. Thank you. I totally spaced that one.
Thank you. We appreciate all of your input. That's helpful. All right, shall we hop over to Disney World?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So, again, here are our categories that we're trying our best to kind of give you some options of looking into for you. Kate, do you want to read our Magic Kingdom list since I read all the Disneyland ones?
Yeah. Sure. Let's do the ones that we're less familiar with. Let's just switch places. No, I'm just kidding. I know Magic Kingdom. So falling and dipping and general motion rides at Magic Kingdom. Barnstormer, again, kind of like the Gadget Coaster. They're very similar, very short rides, but they do have some dips and turns and things in them. Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, Seven Dwarfs, Mine Train, Tron, and then Pirates also does have one drop in it. It's not terribly long and not terribly severe, but there is a drop, so just FYI. Spinning rides, we have Mad Tea Party and Dumbo, the Magic Carpets of Aladdin, Astro Orbiter, and Prince Charming Regal Carousel, which does go around like all the other carousels. And up and down, if you want to think about it that way. And then screens, of course, PhilharMagic, just like in California Adventure. So same kind of thing.
All right, let's talk about Epcot. Epcot is an interesting one. There's a couple little like asterisks, I feel like, when it comes to some of the things in Epcot.
Yes.
So let's just talk about just general motion sickness, falling and dipping, those types of things. So you've got Cosmic Rewind, which is one that we have mentioned a lot already in this podcast episode. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is a big one. Mission Space is a really big one. A lot of people get really, really nauseous on Mission Space.
We should come back to that. Like, we should just like come back, because that has like a bigger discussion.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. And then also Remy's Ratatouille Adventure can get some people with the kind of jerky motion with that. If we want to talk about rides with screens, again, Mission Space, which pause on that for a second. Remy also has screens. Soren, which we've talked about with the differences in those as well. One that I thought was interesting that I saw is that some people talked about the Finding Nemo ride, so the Seas with Nemo and Friends, specifically for the section when you go through the EAC, East Australian Current, because you are in like a tunnel with the bubbles kind of and waves floating around you.
I can see it.
That could bother some people. So that, again, may be just a part where you just close your eyes through and then open it again whenever you come out the other side of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious it's coming. You can kind of see it, and it's not a very fast-moving ride. So
yes, yeah, you'll be able to tell when it's coming, and probably very quickly be able to tell whether or not it's gonna make you feel sick.
Yeah.
And then just something to keep in mind if screens are an issue for you. There are a couple like IMAX style screens for the shows in World Showcase that I found that people had mentioned possibly made them feel a little vertigo or motion sickness. So the Canada Far and Wide, Impressions de France, and the Reflections of China shows can all just be ones to be cautious about if you know that those big IMAX screens kind of make you feel sick.
Well, technically, they're circle vision, Jackie.
I know, but not everybody understands circle vision, Kate.
I'm over here like, it's not IMAX.
I said IMAX style. It's not.
You did.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes, it is circle vision.
But
I am
it's
aware.
360 degrees.
But I want to make sure that all of our listeners are aware of what in the world that means, Kate.
You're right. You're right. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, it's circle vision.
I'm sorry, okay? Oh my goodness. Okay, should we circle back to Mission Space, Kate?
Yeah, I do want to mention Buzz Lightyear. We forgot that one in Magic Kingdom because some people do get motion sickness in the tunnel of Buzz Lightyear, or if like the ones in Magic Kingdom spin, right? Or is that just Disneyland? Do they both spin?
They can, but you control them.
Yeah. So it depends on how much the person who's with you spins it. You can just tell them stop spinning
I did forget there was that tunnel part in that because I thought about Buzz Lightyear, but I was like, well, you control it, so you can decide how much you get jostled side to side. But that's true. There is a tunnel in that one as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about Mission Space. I feel like everybody's been waiting for this moment the whole episode. So it's finally arrived. Here we are at Mission Space. And the thing to know about Mission Space is it's not a traditional thrill ride like most of the other rides you experience in Disney. It is kind of like what they use to train astronauts to go to space. And they put you in this little like capsule, and then they spin it really fast until you feel weightless. So it is an extreme spinning if you go on the orange side. I believe the green side doesn't have the same kind of spinning effects, or it's lesser degree.
I think it's lesser. There is still a little bit of that, but it's significantly less.
Yeah. So I went on Mission Space once. I didn't know much about it. This was a long time ago, because I was still fairly new to Disney World. This was like over a decade ago. And so I was like, I'm good with roller coasters, so I'll be fine to go on the orange side. And that was a huge mistake for me. Huge. Because luckily I kept it in, but I was really, really nauseous. And the whole time I was like, they're like telling me I need to hit some button or something. I have like vague recollections of like, if I just hit it, maybe I can get out of here faster. I'm also claustrophobic, and the thing comes in like this, like it's like right next to your face.
Yep.
It's so tiny. So it was like a nightmare for me. So I will never ever go on that ride, even on the green side again. It actually, both me and my husband does not really suffer from motion sickness at all. It knocked us out so badly. It was the morning in Epcot. We had to go back, and we slept the rest of the day in our hotel because we literally couldn't, like, our heads were so messed up, we couldn't function the rest of the day. So it took us out for a whole Disney day. So if you have motion sickness, my best advice is to don't go on the orange side. Maybe go on the green side if you've prepared.
Maybe.
But I don't even recommend that.
No.
I just don't go on it.
Yep.
I just say that's not a ride for me.
No, I feel like we talked about the different categories of motion sickness. It checks all the boxes and then some.
Yeah, every single one.
So unless you like foolproof know that your prep will make you not motion sick, then you could try the green, but maybe try it towards the end of the day or like right before you're going to take a break at your hotel, so that way you can go back and lay down if you need to. Because yeah, I don't even suffer from motion sickness, and I have not even done the orange side. I've done the green side, and nope, it gives me a headache every time I do it.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. I was like, why would I do this for fun?
This is not fun. I think they do also have motion sickness bags in the orange side of Mission Space as well.
I didn't know that at the time, though.
Yeah.
But they definitely have like a lot of trash cans after you get off of the ride. That's always an indication of what that ride's about. How many trash cans are available at the end.
And if they are open on the top or not.
Yes.
That is the other indicator, because you will find all of the trash cans in the exit queue area of Guardians at Epcot all have open tops.
Yeah.
For that purpose.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are affected by Cosmic Rewind.
Yeah.
They really struggle with that. For sure. So yeah, Mission Space, just don't. That's our advice. Yeah. Just don't.
Yeah.
It looks like we might have forgotten a few rides, Jackie.
Okay. Feel free.
For Epcot, Sherry says, does Frozen ever after affect you since it goes backwards? And I don't do backwards rides much, but it's like, it's not long enough to affect me, I guess. And like it does go backwards though, and rather quickly for a short period. So if any backwards motion bothers you, maybe don't do that. It's like Everest for me is like that length of backwards is really, really tough. But
yes, and it does have a drop, so I did forget that on my falling motion list. So thank you. Yes. Like I said, I may have forgotten some.
Yeah. Everybody's talking about Cosmic too. Yeah, Cosmic is a tough one. It's tough because everybody wants to go on it because it's a super cool ride. Like it's really fun. But it is a challenge for those who have the motion sickness. Just prepare yourself.
Yes, it is. You really gotta that is one that you really truly gotta know what works for you before you go on it, or do it at the very end.
Yeah. I finally told my kids that we're going to Disney, by the way, and my daughter has a lot of anxiety about going on that ride because she doesn't want to get sick.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll share this episode with her. Like, here's all your options.
Shall we talk about Hollywood Studios?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Hollywood Studios, I'm just gonna throw this out there. It's a really rough park for motion sickness. So
it has a lot of thrill rides. Yeah.
And even some of the not so thrill rides you could still have issues. So let's just talk about what issues each of the ride has.
Brace yourself. All right. So we do have the falling and the dipping of the Tower of Terror. If you don't know what Tower of Terror is, it pulls you down faster than an elevator normally would fall. So, and then it will pull you back up and then back down and then back up and then back down, and a lot of times.
And up and down and up and down and up and down.
So yeah, it's definitely that sensation if you're on an airplane and the plane drops for turbulence. It's kind of got that sensation to it. So yeah, that's a rough one. And it's worse in its iterations. I don't know if Hollywood Studios probably doesn't have them, but I know in Guardians of the Galaxy, the version in California, they have that like Monsters After Dark one that happens during Halloween. That one's so much worse. Like I can handle the normal version and like be okay. And that one, it's like 3 times more intense. Oof. So just FYI.
Good to know. Good to know. So just general motion sickness, also some falling, dipping as well with Rock and Roller Coaster and Slinky Dog Dash. Those are just your standard roller coasters. Rock and Roller Coaster is more of an intense roller coaster that goes upside down. Slinky Dog is a little more of a calmer roller coaster, but it still has a lot of those issues. Lots of little bunny hills on Slinky Dog. So if that's something that bothers you, just maybe not on that one. You can see that one though, which is helpful, which we just were talking about, being able to kind of watch it. You can see Slinky Dog for the majority of the coaster, so that's helpful.
Yeah, and Rocking Roller Coaster, that one always makes me feel like when I get off of it, it's like my head is messed up, where I can't walk straight. It messes with my head more than anything else. This makes me feel like I'm out of it. Yeah. So something about that.
Yeah. And then spinning rides at Hollywood Studios, Alien Swirling Saucers, I put Toy Story Mania there. I guess I didn't think about it. It spins somewhat, I think was my thought process with that, which I didn't put it on the spinning rides, I don't think, when I mentioned it in Disneyland.
Yeah, it does
But
turn around.
it
Yeah.
does kind of whip you and spin you in between screens. And then Runaway Railway, again, like we talked about with the California version as well. And then screens, again, all of those Star Wars rides. So Smuggler's Run, Star Tours, and Rise of the Resistance. Toy Story Mania has screens. And I did put Muppet Vision 3D on there just because it is a 3D screen. So if that bothers you, steer clear of that one. But only just if it's a 3D issue for you.
Yeah. I traveled with somebody once who like was so affected by those screens, like it would trigger migraines for them. Which they didn't know because they'd never been to Disney before, which made me very sad because they couldn't go on virtually anything because they didn't want to go on the thrill rides, and then they couldn't do the screens, and I was like, not really sure what's left. The carousel. Let's go to the carousel. So
there you go. Yep. Yeah. So again, Hollywood Studios is a really tough park when it comes to that. So just beware. Now, there are lots of shows and other things that you can enjoy there, if that is a park that you are going to, but just be warned that the majority of the rides there have some sort of motion sickness warning that I would caution you.
Yeah. Maybe you can do some of the restaurants there instead. They've got 50s Prime Time, and they've got the drive-in theater one, sci-fi drive-in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one's really fun to do as an experience rather than a ride. You do sit in a car, but it doesn't move. So you can eat your food and watch some old clips of old sci-fi movies. It's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think I got everything in Hollywood Studios.
I think so, but you guys can correct us if we're wrong. So moving on to Animal Kingdom, ones for motion, Dinosaur, which I think they put all the warning signs out there because people think it's not going to be like scary, and it's terrifying, and it has a lot of motion. So it's not like a fun little. It is a fun ride. It's not like a kid's dinosaur ride. Then Kilimanjaro Safari is just very bumpy, like extremely bumpy, and it can do a lot of jerky motion to it. And then Expedition Everest is just a giant roller coaster, and it also goes backwards for a significant portion. So it's hard. Then you can't watch the track. So that is tough for some of us. Spinning, we have Triceratops spin. Self-explanatory, and then
it's got it in the name.
It's in there. And then screens, we have Avatar Flight of Passage is big screen with like 3D glasses, and then It's Tough to Be a Bug also has that 3D experience as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately Flight of Passage I feel like is a big one with people getting motion sick because it's a simulator and it's got the 3D screens and all of that, but it's such a fun attraction. So like that's one that like if you're unsure of, like, see if you can figure out a way to do that one.
Yeah, that is one you shouldn't miss if possible. It's hard because you'd be like, oh, I don't want to risk it, but I'm like, oh, but that one's worth it. That one's not like Mission Space. It's like you should try.
Yes. Again, know your body, know what you're capable of, know your limits. But if you're wanting to save it for one at Animal Kingdom, Flight of Passage would be our suggestion.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yes.
Well, I think that's all of Disney World.
I think so. Again, if we forgot any more, please let us know. Because again, we did the best we could, but everyone's different. So some of these rides may never affect you in the way that we said they might, or all of them may. It just really just depends on you as a person and how your body reacts to all of that. So yes, if we forgot any, please let us know. But in the meantime, shall we talk briefly about Disneyland Paris?
Let's do it. To like relive it in my mind.
I thought you would appreciate that.
Yes. I will say, for motion, Big Thunder Mountain, and I will say this version of Big Thunder Mountain is more intense than the US parks. Like a lot more intense. You go down underneath the water to start out in the dark, so you can't see the track at all. So if you're used to the US versions where you can see the track the whole time, or most of the track, I know there's some short dark versions, or dark portions in the US. There's an extended dark portion while you're going under the water in the beginning that is not in the US versions, and it goes really fast through that time. It's actually really fun. It's amazing. But it is harder to see the tractor in that one. So just know that it does, it's a little bit more intense. Also, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril. I didn't actually get to go on this last time. We ran out of time, so I sent the boys to do it. I did it the first time I was there, but it's an outdoor roller coaster, and you'll be able to see a lot of what it looks like there. And Hyperspace Mountain is not like the Space Mountains in the US. It's more akin to Rocky Roller Coaster. It goes upside down, and it's intense. So just bear in mind, if you're coming from the US and you're going to Disneyland Paris, just know that some of these rides are just way more intense there than they are in the US. So, and also the Pirates of the Caribbean does have 2 drops. One's kind of at the beginning, and then another one's at the end when the arsenal kind of blows up. So, just be aware that there's drops on that one, just like in the US, but in different places. There's also spinning rides. They have the Mad Hatter's Teacups, so same as the US parks pretty much. And then the screens, they've got Star Tours as well. I'm like, I don't think we did that there. I was just like, they have Star Tours there? I was like, oh, I remember seeing it now. Yes. We just didn't get to it.
They do, yes. And then the second park in Disneyland Paris is the Walt Disney Studios Park. A couple more kind of familiar rides there. The falling and or dipping motion, they do have a Tower of Terror there, which is more similar to like the traditional Tower of Terror, correct?
Yeah, it's a lot like the Disneyland version more than the Disney World, because the Disney World is unique in that like the car will come out and like move forward on that track and then like engage in a separate chute. It's more like the Disneyland one where it doesn't do that at all. It just goes up and down, and that's it. Yeah. But
okay.
Same kind of motion as the others. It's pretty similar to the motion wise for the elevator to Disney World.
They've also got the Toy Soldiers parachute drop. And the Slinky Dog Zigzag Spin, which their Slinky Dog is not like the Hollywood Studios Slinky Dog. It's a lot smaller of a ride. It's not, I mean, it's on a roller coaster track, but would you consider it even really a roller coaster?
No. It's like those rides. So it goes around in a circle and then up and down. So it's like a rolling motion around in a circle. And that's it. That's all it does. Just a couple times. So I didn't even go on it because I was like, I'm good. I just watched it a couple times. Right. And the Toy Soldiers parachute drop, if you're familiar with the jumping jellyfish in California Adventure, same kind of thing. It's like kind of, it's gentle, but it still goes up and down and kind of, so just be aware of that.
Yeah. And then just general motion there. They've got Avengers Assemble, which, Kate, do you want to give us a brief? I'm just going to kind of ask you to maybe do a brief description of a couple of these for people who maybe are wanting to know.
That one used to be Rock and Roller Coaster that they've rethemed. So you can kind of know what that is, which is funny because when my son came off of it, he was like, that is almost identical to Rock and Roller Coaster. And he didn't know that it had been rethemed. Yeah. I was like, good for you, recognizing that.
Gold star for you.
But yeah, so it's almost exactly, it's just the theming is different. And then Crush's Coaster is very similar to Cosmic Rewind. So it has except that the cars are a little bit different because you're sitting like back to back for 2 other people. So there's 2 facing this way and 2 facing this way. You're not, obviously your backs aren't touching. There's a shell between you, but you're sitting in like a turtle shell, and then it spins on the track as it goes through a coaster. So just similar to Cosmic Rewind. If you have problems with Cosmic Rewind, you probably will with Crush's Coaster as well. My kids didn't like it because it was so unpredictable with the spinning, and they didn't like because they couldn't tell where they were going to go next with that. But it's kind of like being in the EAC and you're spinning around in it. That's the theory or the theme of the ride. So, so not a motion sickness friendly ride.
Yeah, doesn't sound like it. And then they've also got a version of Ratatouille, which is identical to the Epcot one. So
yeah, pretty much.
Or pretty
Unless it goes backwards like mine did.
Right. Which we can't control that. So sorry if that happens to you. But
so just ask to ride again if yours goes accidentally backwards
if you have
the whole time.
Spinning and screens, there's your Ratatouille. RC Racer, which is more of a questionable one, kind of, because it just does like a back and forth motion, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, but it goes like way up high.
Okay.
And then it goes, it's like a U track. And then it goes up high one way. And then like those pirate ship rides that kind of go back and forth, it's the same kind of thing. So if backwards motion bothers you, or like, falling, it's got both of those in it. So.
Yeah. And then the Cars 4 Wheels Rally.
So that's kind of like Alien Swirling Saucers. Or if you're in Disneyland, it'll be like Mater's Junkyard Jamboree. It's pretty much the exact same ride mechanism, just different vehicles. So it does some spinning, it does a little bit of whipping you, those kinds of things. So I just looked at this one. Half these rides I didn't even bother going on because I was like, we didn't have a lot of time, and I was like, I'll just look at it because they're all out in the open. They're not like in buildings. So I was like, oh, okay.
Right. Watch it and see what you think. See if it's worth it or not. And then the screens that they have there, again, we talked about Ratatouille having screens. And then Spider-Man Web Adventure. You want to tell us a little bit about that one?
I'm trying to remember. Is this like... Did I go on this one? I think it was. Oh, it's exactly like the one that's in California Adventure.
Isn't it like Web Slingers?
Web Slingers, yeah.
Okay,
I was just like, wait a minute. Their Avengers campus is just like slightly different than the one that's in. So I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's Web Slingers. It's just in French. So
I remember you talking about that. So if any of you are like wanting to know more about Disneyland Paris, we did a whole episode after Kate got back on how to tackle Disneyland Paris and our tips and tricks for that. But I do remember you talking about it being in French, and it was a little bit like
it was
jarring.
Weird. Well, what is it? The guy's name who's Spider-Man. I'm trying to remember the actor's name.
We did this last time.
I know. The actor.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. See, I want to say Tom Hiddleston, but it's not him. Tom Holland is like speaking, but I know what he usually sounds like in the U.S. version, but he's overdubbed in French the whole time, and I was just like, this is so weird. I think I have a video of it somewhere. It was very disorienting. I was like, that's not his voice.
Yeah. Well, that's like, so just a quick aside about Disneyland Paris. I came across a video of a parade at Disneyland Paris, and my daughter came up while I was watching it. She's, ooh, what's that? And I was like, oh, it's a parade out in Paris. And they were playing Someday My Prince Will Come but it was all in French, and she started singing it, and then she was like, Mom, what is that? Mind you, she's 5, so like she has no concept of like other languages yet. We've talked about it, but like no concept of that. So I was like, well, it's Someday My Prince Will Come, but it's not in English. And she was like, what?
Brain.
Yeah, no,
exploding.
No. And I was like, it's in French. That's the language they speak in Paris. And she was like, okay. We moved on. But she was just it was so jarring to her that she was just like, Mom, this is not okay.
Well, it's really funny that my girls like to sing along to the songs that we heard in Disneyland Paris, so they'll put them on and stuff and sing to, especially the fireworks one. But they like don't really speak French that well, so they just kind of make up their own version of whatever they're saying, and it's hilarious. And I don't ever want to fix it because it makes me laugh every time. Like, it's close enough.
Someday maybe they'll realize what they're supposed to be saying. Maybe.
Well, I was like, well, the 30th anniversary is over now, so like they're never going to sing that in public, so it'll be fine.
Right. That's very true. That is very true. Well, I think that wraps up all of the rides for Disneyland, Disney World, and Disneyland Paris. Hopefully that list will help you when you're planning. If you've never been on something or are going for the first time, hopefully that will help you kind of work your way through the rides and decide what you want to try. And hopefully some of the tips that we gave you at the beginning of the episode will be helpful in your trying of the rides.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them too. Like, I feel like there's some things that are new that I hadn't even thought of doing. And I was like, oh, maybe there's some new things that I can try that would be different than just taking medication. I'll probably still will, because I know that works. Right. And, once you find something that works, you're like, I'm not going to mess with that.
Yeah.
It's the motion sickness people hear me there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, tread lightly with new combinations of things.
but if you haven't found something that works, or if motion sickness is new to you, which does happen, as
Yeah.
you get older or you have illness or those kinds of things, like there's like maybe you could go on something last year that now all of a sudden is like giving you motion sickness. We wanted to make sure we gave you guys some ideas of things that you can adapt and try to allow you to still enjoy some of your favorite rides, or maybe for the first time that you couldn't before.
Yeah. Any last minute additions to our list on your side? I want to make sure we didn't forget any.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we got most of them. I'm sure we're forgetting something, because that's just how it goes, right?
Yes,
so,
always. Fine. Like, I forgot Space Mountain. It's fine.
It's okay. We know what Space Mountain is, so it's all right.
I do. It is true. It is true. Well, let's move on to our Ask the Mom segment. For those of you who maybe are new or don't know, every podcast episode we end with our Ask the Mom segment, where we take a question from our Mom Street community. Could be on topic, could be completely unrelated to what we've talked about, and we do our best to give you a helpful answer. So our question this week is fairly straightforward, but I feel like it's a good one to touch on, and we've talked about this actually like way back, like episode 2 maybe of Mom Street, way back, over almost a year and a half ago. And the question is, what is the best way to get from the airport in Orlando to Walt Disney World property? So Kate, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, because I don't typically fly.
Yeah, and I'm flying in a couple days there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this has changed over time. A lot of people, if you haven't been to Disney in a long time, used to have the Magical Express service that was a free bus service that took you to your resort. That doesn't exist anymore, sadly. Rest in peace, Magical Express. So, I think it was Magic Express? Magical Express. I always get it mixed up. I've always got it Express. I think it's Magical. Anyway, the Express is gone. Now you have to go with a new one. And it's interesting because this has actually changed since we did an episode about this. Because there used to be 2 main bus companies that you could take. One was Mears Connect and the other one was Sunshine Flyer. Mears Connect has now acquired Sunshine Flyer. Yep. So they've merged into one big company, which is what it is. So Mears Connect is one way to go. It is roughly around I want to say $36 for adults.
That sounds right.
A little cheaper for kids. And sometimes they run promotions with kids, go free with an adult or discounted with adults or all those kinds of things. So you can kind of keep an eye out for those. Mm-hmm. I have found Mears Connect to be fairly reliable. You do have to do a shared service unless you pay for the much more expensive direct service, like very much more. It's like $250. It's a lot more. So
that's a lot more.
It's like way out of my price bracket. But they'll take you and your luggage and they'll drop you off at your Disney resort. Usually it's to the Disney resorts. They do service a couple of the ones that are around Disney as well, so you'd have to look online and see which ones they go to. But they do get you there in roughly an hour-ish, depending on how many stops you have and what time of day you fly in. Sometimes you can wait in pretty long lines there if you're coming in at a popular time, or if they don't have anything. But I've never waited longer than like 10 to 15 minutes to get on my bus, and then maybe another 45 minutes from there to my hotel. So I usually budget about an hour.
Yeah. And keep in mind that the price for that is per person.
Per person,
so
yes.
You are paying per person. So if you have a family of 5, like Kate does, and you're trying to use that is whatever the rate is per person.
Yeah, and that is round trip too. So you could, in case you only wanted to go and never come back, you could just do it one way. That's always an option. But usually you're going round trip, so that's why I just give the round trip price. Yeah. Other options is they do have, I believe, both Lyft and Uber. I haven't used them there. I usually use them in Anaheim a whole lot more, but I do know they do exist there. And so that is an option, especially if you have a big family and you want to do like Uber XL or something like Lyft XL. That might actually save you more money than taking $36 per person. Yes. So you have to kind of do the math there. You can go online and estimate their cost. There's a really great app that's called Rome to Rio that I use all the time for when I travel anywhere now. I use it for international travel, but it also works virtually anywhere. And it will tell you the cost of taking different modes of transportation and also show you how to get there.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it's a free app, Rome to Rio. Definitely recommend that one. It doesn't necessarily price out Lyft rides, but it'll give you a general like taxi rate, so you can kind of like be like, okay, that's the taxi rate, and maybe then go and check out Lyft and Uber.
Yeah.
But that one's, so you can do that. You can do a taxi. I wouldn't probably recommend that as my first one. I'd probably go either the bus or the Lyft or Uber, or rent a car. Rent a car is the other option. Sometimes rental cars can be super expensive though from MCO.
Yeah.
Especially vans, like if you have a big family.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on how long you're keeping the rental. Because I do know, and I have heard from, I believe it was our friend Victoria that told me that there is a rental car drop-off spot on, like in the middle of Disney property. So sometimes if you can find a good rate for just like a few hour rental, it may be cheaper for you to rent a car, drop it off on Disney property, and then take a bus back to wherever you're going to go from there. So keep that in mind as well, to look at kind of some different options. And I will mention that Uber and Lyft do also both allow you to like do a book ahead. So like you can pre-book your time that you need to be picked up at the airport or at your resort.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that going in. Like I would maybe do that from my resort back to my hotel. But it's so unpredictable when you fly, especially these days, especially like right now in the middle of winter, like everything's canceled and things like that. And you just don't know if your flight's going to get delayed. I'd say at least 50% of my flights are delayed by some amount, and some of them make me miss connections and stuff like that. And I fly once a month. So I would say you probably wouldn't schedule them on the way out, but they're usually pretty quick to get. On the way in.
Yeah, so. Unless you have like a ridiculously early or late time, you may have to wait a few extra minutes, but even then, it's such a busy airport that you'll have no problem. Now, I will also just mention in there that if you're going to the Sanford airport, that's a totally different story, because there is that second airport in the Orlando area that some people do go to. Mears does not service that airport. So keep that in mind. That is not an option if you're going to Sanford. The other options are available. You may wait a little bit longer for something like a Lyft or an Uber out there, just because I don't think there are as frequent drivers that kind of populate that area. Most of them go to MCO, the Orlando airport, because that's where the majority of the flights are.
Yeah. And I know in Anaheim, at least, I had a Lyft driver who schooled me on how to make sure. He was saying for them in the Anaheim area, of course, this is across the country, that Mondays in particular, but virtually any early morning flight, there's a lot of people trying to get to those flights. And so if you don't pre-book, there's a chance there might not be a driver available to get you there, because there's so many people trying to get there at the same time. So that, I think, pre-booking is very, very wise if you're going to use one of those methods of getting back to the airport so that you don't miss your flight.
Yes. Well, thank you to those of you who have sent in questions for our Ask the Mom segment. If you've got a question you want us to answer, please send it our way. You can contact us on any of our social media platforms that we have. You can find us on Discord, on our good friend Kirk at Walrus Carp, his Discord. We do have a Mom Street channel on there. And you can always send us an email, momstreetusa@gmail.com. All of those links are at Mr. Lincoln bio up here. I forgot I was mirrored. So you can find us there. Kate, anything else on topic for this evening?
Not necessarily for motion sickness, except, just saying, just know your body, know yourself. Always be aware, advocate for yourself and your children, those important things. But I will say, I do want to mention that Jackie is wonderful at a lot of doing things for like trip consulting. So if you're feeling really overwhelmed with all these Disney details and you're just like, I can't, like, this is too much. Like, Jackie knows what she's doing. She's very organized, very well planned, and she will take care of your family like crazy. She's not a trip travel agent, but she is a trip consultant.
Yes.
So I just want to advocate for my good friend Jackie here that she
Why,
is
thank you.
amazing at trip planning. And so if you need help, you can reach us via that Mom Street USA at gmail.com. You can contact us there, and Jackie will help you have a very magical vacation for your family with a lot less stress.
Yes, I will. I'm very good at that.
She's actually helped me plan mine, so I can vouch for Jackie for that. So,
Yes, well, thank you.
yeah.
And today's a big day for you, Kate.
Oh, yes. I did release a new book today that is called What the Mansion Eyes See, which is the second book in my Pixie Dust in the Park series. It's a romantic suspense that's set in Walt Disney World. It's available on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble for print, but mostly Amazon and Kindle Unlimited as well. If you have that, all of my books just became available on Kindle Unlimited. I have 3 now, which is wild.
So exciting.
Yeah, but today is my official book launch for my new book that's called What the Mansion Eyes See. So, yeah, very excited for that.
If you're looking for that, check out the bios.
There's all our links. I finally got all of mine added. So
Yes. Yes, and I updated ours because we were missing some things and needed to just make it a little more accessible for y'all. So hopefully that will be helpful for anyone that is looking to contact us. We love hearing from you guys. Please send us messages, even if it's just like, hi, I like your podcast. We would love to hear from you.
yes, yes, for sure. We would love to hear from with questions or comments or anything. We would love to hear from you guys. It makes our day to hear from you, quite honestly. So that being said, shall we wrap it up?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Mom Street USA. It's been really fun to talk about this topic that we feel like everybody asks us about all the time, because there's a lot of us out there that suffer from motion sickness. So if that is you, you are not alone, and we are here to help. So we hope this has been a helpful episode for you. Jackie, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
Thank you to our live chat over here on TikTok where we record for chiming in and giving us your input and helping make sure we got everything covered. We appreciate our Mom Street community so much. Thank you guys for being here, and we will see you on the next episode.
Yep. See you next time for Mom Street USA.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.